It's a trade war, my friends, and it's certainly not dying down. As it turns out, we were all wrong. Donald Trump did not put a 125% tariff on China. They've clarified it's a 145% tariff. Now, the news is breaking despite the fact that it's always been the case. That is, when Donald Trump announced that he was going to be increasing tariffs on China by 125%, many people in the media, including ourselves, did not realize that included an additional 20% that he had previously put on the country. And the White House has now clarified all goods coming in. They're going to be a lot more than that, 145%. But wait, there's more. The de minimis loophole, which allows individuals to buy small products from China directly, is now facing a massive tariff of over, I believe it's around 110%, meaning for websites like Shine and Temu, when you want to buy those smaller products under $800 directly from the manufacturer in China, not anymore. They got to double those prices. In response to all of this, China is panicking. Now, some people are saying it's Donald Trump playing fourth dimensional chess, which is kind of dumb if you ask me, because it's just regular old chess. He's got a plan. There are pitfalls. There are risks. Depending on what occurs after he makes a move, he may make a different move. And one of those negative consequences was a failure in the bond market. People were selling off U.S. debt, and that was pretty worrying. Trump's admins actually said, yeah, the bond market was worrying, so Trump made his move to reverse course. But this does not mean that it was an accident. It means Trump made a move, assessed what was happening, made a different move. It's funny because I guess liberals don't understand what planning actually means, and this is a component of it. In response, Donald Trump has announced he's going to be he's going to put a 90-day pause on tariffs for these other nations, except keeping a small 10% on everybody. The EU has just announced they will stop their retaliatory measures because Trump will be negotiating with them. But for China, it's getting worse. In response, they're saying they are going to unleash a tsunami, an economic tsunami against the United States. And they've started having private meetings with foreign nations to try and shore up some kind of global group that will defy the United States. Oh, boy. This could shape things in a rather interesting way. But I got to say, it's not so much the international issues that I'm worried about, though I am a little bit. It's domestic issues. And you've got calls for insider trading investigations on Donald Trump because a bunch of people made money off that trade. Trump posted to buy. But right now, the market ain't doing so well. So when the market swings up and down, you get wealth transfer. And the one thing I will say is that when Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, now's a great time to buy, you could actually see a massive amount of purchases occurring in the market. These Trump supporters and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who said buy the dip, they did, and they made bank, but only if they exited the market in that moment. Right now, we're actually down quite a bit. The market is still in chaos. Currently 4.14 down in the Dow, 4.87 down in the S&P, 5.66 in the NASDAQ. So the market is still absolutely chaotic. And there are going to be massive consequences for small businesses. I've got some of those ideas. So we'll talk about that. But I do think it's still important to discuss why Trump is doing these things. It's not ego, maybe a little bit, but the corporate press is not telling you. Maybe they don't understand. Liberals are either not telling you or they don't understand. We have got a problem of waste, fraud, and abuse in this country, an over prioritization of the elderly over the young, a declining fertility rate. And get this, in the latest Doge investigation, they found that a bunch of 1 to 5-year-olds were collecting unemployment. Now, to be fair, Elon, those children are unemployed. Okay, how they qualify for unemployment, though, is beyond me. But this is money being stolen and wasted. I'm sorry, my friends. For a long time, the Titanic was sinking. The U.S. was in free fall. We were buying and buying and buying in trade deficit. And why is that bad? We weren't making anything. So the only thing of value we actually had to trade, when we give $1 to China to buy a cymbal-banging monkey or whatever, China uses that dollar to buy our land. They're buying our assets from us. They're buying our houses and they're renting them to us. America was becoming an indentured servant of China because of this deficit. And that's the same for many other nations. The country was being sold off. And Donald Trump said no. So we're going to break that all down, my friends. Before we do, head over to castbrew.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Luck of the Seamus is back. You got to go to our ground coffee section, and we've got bags of Luck of the Seamus, but they're moving quick. It's an Irish cream flavored coffee. And this is our Freedom Tunes, Seamus Coughlin partnership ground roasted coffee. We got 689 bags left, so check that out. Use promo code RUMBLE30 for a tremendous 30% off. I got to tell you, I think we lose money on that deal, but I'll tell you why we do it. Basically, when companies offer up big promos like 30% as opposed to like 10, we're trying to gauge whether you guys who are watching are willing to purchase from us and at what scale. So we did a Rumble 10 code. We then immediately increased it within the week. And we wanted to see whether you guys wanted to buy, didn't want to buy, would buy at a certain price point so we can understand how better to serve and produce better content and, just understand what you guys, the audience, want. That's how it works. So the promo code's purpose is maybe if we offer a big promo code, we will see tremendous sales. And what I will say is, full disclosure, the sales that we've gotten from you guys exclusive to Rumble with Rumble 30, Rumble 30 has been comparable to YouTube, which is really, really great news for Rumble. It means that you guys as audience members are, you buy at the same rate as anybody on YouTube. What does that mean? It means for advertisers who want to get on YouTube, money can be made, right? Now, it's not all about the money, right? But you got to understand, when we do these shows, we need sponsors. Sponsors need to know that Rumble is a place where you will make money if you buy advertisements. So when people on Rumble buy from sponsored posts on Rumble, more advertisers want to get in this space. So it's all real good news, and that's why we do those shout-outs. But don't forget, also, less so about products. Go to timcast.com, click Join Us. If you want to watch our exclusive Rumble Premium content, that's promo code TIM10 at Rumble. If you go to timcastpremium.com, you'll find that, or join our Discord server. On our Discord server, you can chat with like-minded individuals. You can argue. They will help you start projects. They will help you get fit. You can help them do the same. If you're an expert, they want to hear from you. Maybe you're really good at crochet and you come in and say, guys, I'm going to teach you how to do it. And people are going to say, all right, let's roll, baby. I ain't doing nothing else. So go to timcast.com, support us. Also, shout out to Steven Crowder and the Mug Club for once again shouting us out here at Timcast. I am your host for this hour of the Rumble Live lineup. Tim Pool. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Let's talk about where we currently are in this trade war. And I got to tell you, it is all good news. Good news for America. But there is some bad news. Not all. Maybe I shouldn't say it. But generally speaking, we got better skies ahead, though there's going to be some tumult. Some people are not going to be happy. So I've got some Reddit posts from people who are saying, I'm not happy. Yo, I got to tell you, over one of the top posts on the stocks subreddit is the suicide hotline. Guys, please. I hope everybody's okay out there. But people are really freaking out. You don't need to. Trump is doing right by this country. It may not be perfect. It may not always be sunshine. Sometimes those storm clouds come. But let's read the story. Don't forget to smash that like button. Share this video with everyone, everywhere, on every platform if you want to help us out. Here's the story from Bloomberg. Trump tariffs on China now at least 145% as trade war ramps up. That includes both a 125% rate that covers reciprocal duties as well as levies imposed on China for retaliating against U.S. import taxes, according to a White House memo. It also encompasses a 20% rate imposed by Trump earlier this year over fentanyl trafficking. The stark U.S. tariffs on the world's second largest economy follow an escalating tit-for-tat trade war that has unnerved global financial markets. Trump's tariff rollout has been marked by confusion over the rates being levied against different countries, and seen the president on Wednesday put off plans to impose sweeping higher levies on select trading partners, even as he escalated his actions against Beijing. Now, the big breaking story, my friends, that so I'm doing research. This is what I do all morning. I'm recording. I'm doing research. I pulled up the story about how China's freaking out. They're basically going to a bunch of countries saying, we need a coalition to stop the United States from doing this. Let's see who wants to play ball. So far, the United States has the edge. All of these countries are basically going to say, look, if it's a choice between China and the U.S., we choose the U.S. If Trump didn't make this move, we could be on the back end of a bad deal. So China's freaking out. But I refreshed one of the stories and instantly it pops up. Breaking news. The tariff is 145%. I love it. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people who really don't like me. And they're going to be like, my business, which relies on Chinese peasants, is going under. And I'm sitting here just being like, yep, maybe you should have bought American. But they didn't. And when Donald Trump came in and we voted for him, the message was clear the whole time. You know, the left posts this fake meme, this fake story where they claim that Trump's merchandise is made in China. It's a lie. Trump's got MAGA hats. When he makes his MAGA hats, they are made in America. His shirts, they're made in America. Come on. It's not hard to do, and Trump's not stupid. However, there are people who are selling their own versions of these products, and they're making them overseas. The left then finds these knockoff products and claims Trump is doing it, and these people live in a false reality. Now, right now, the market is in a bit of tumult. As I already mentioned, it's down about it's down 4.13 in the Dow, 4.83 in the S&P, and 5.62 in NASDAQ. People are still losing money. You don't know when to buy or when not to buy, and a lot of advisors I'm seeing online are saying steer clear of the market right now because you have no idea what Trump is going to do. Now, I'm not going to give you any financial advice, but yeah. You got the breaking news from CNBC that stocks are tumbling. But take a look at this. CNBC reports Trump tariffs on China now total 145%. But get this. It's not just that. 29 minutes ago, as of the recording of this video, we're currently live at noon, Trump hikes de minimis tariff on low-value packages from China to 120%. Whoa. This is massive. This means Shine and Temu are in trouble. Trump's latest executive order hiking tariffs on Chinese imports also raises a separate U.S. duty on low-value packages imported from China for a third time in 8 days. Until this year, the so-called de minimis tariff exemption had provided the China-based online retailers Shine and Temu with a major advantage over many of their competitors. Starting May 2nd, U.S.-bound packages from China valued at $800 or less will face a 120% tariff rate. That's an increase of 30 points over a previous executive action, which tripled the tariff to 90%. The order signed Wednesday also increases the per postal item cost for low-value shipments from $100 to $100 starting May 2nd, rising to $200 on June 1st. The order allows transportation carriers delivering the shipment to choose whether to pay the percentage rate or the flat rate, but they are locked into the choice and can only change it once a month. Nuclear. Now, of course, they're mentioning that tech stocks have dropped after their best day for NASDAQ since 2001. U.S. tariffs on China are now at 145. These are all the updates of the past hour. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy says sellers could raise prices due to tariffs. Indeed, perhaps they could. Vance swipes at insane critics of Trump's moves against China. There's a category of DC insider who wants to fight an actual war with China, but also wants China to manufacture much of our critical supply. This is insane. President Trump wants peace, but also wants fair trade and more self-reliance for the American economy. And he is correct. Now take a look at this. April 8th, the previous reporting on Temu and Shine reported Trump had raised the de minimis tariff to 90%. It's up an additional 30%. What they basically said was that this is going to be nuclear for Shine and Temu. Axios reports Trump last week, there's a T missing, signed an executive order. They say applicable duties will be attached to shipments under $800. This we know. Critics of the de minimis exemption say it has bludgeoned U.S. businesses such as fashion retailer Forever 21, which began recently liquidating its U.S. stores after partly blaming the rise of Shine and Temu for its downfall. Quote, the ability for non-U.S. retailers to sell their products at drastically lower prices to U.S. consumers has significantly impacted the company's ability to retain its traditional core customer base. Forever 21 co-chief restructuring officer Spencer Colom said in a court filing. On the other side, free market think tank Cato Institute argued that eliminating the de minimis exemption means effectively raising taxes on American consumers and dramatically increasing shipping times. Reps from Temu and Shine have not previously responded on this issue. I'm sorry, dude. I can't stand these Lolberts. The Lolbert libertarians, but graph go up. Graph go up. Yeah, I don't care if graph go up, if other graph go down. You know what I mean? So if a bunch of box stores in the United States are going out of business and Chinese retailers are making bank, using that money to then buy from the United States. But hold on. If the U.S. ain't making anything, what are they selling to the Chinese? Oh, our farmland and our houses. Yeah, okay, that's not a good thing. Got to sell something. This is what people need to understand about how this trade works. Why does China want U.S. dollars? If our labor is expensive, what do they get from U.S. dollars? Now, the idea is we got dollars, they want them. They got cheaply made goods that we can resell to our people. When they take those dollars, they're going to spend them on something, right? Indeed. But if the U.S. don't manufacture anything, China does. China comes here and they buy up our hard assets. Over a long enough period of time, people of the United States, notably Gen Z, would be indentured servants to the Chinese. They would own all of our homes. Now, the funny thing is, it's kind of a bad idea, China, because sooner or later, Gen Z gets older and they say, why are all of our houses owned by China? And then someone gets elected who signs a bill and then China no longer owns those homes. Good luck invading this country and taking over those houses. That being said, while that may be a potential scenario, another scenario is that the more that China gains control of the U.S. economy and hard assets, the more people will be beholden to them. And so it may be easy to say that a politician might be like, we're going to go against China, but take a look at the Bidens. Sooner or later, they gain enough power, and leverage over an individual does not need to be over the entire economy. You can get China to basically say, we'll give you $5 million in a forgivable loan. Just, don't sign that bill. You can call it bribery. Good luck proving it. Now, on the other hand, with Trump's actions, China is reaching out to other nations in panic. I'm loving it. Cry more, China. China is reaching out, say AP reporting, to other nations as the U.S. layers on more tariffs in what appears to be an attempt to form a united front to compel Washington to retreat. Days into the effort, it's meeting only partial success, with many countries unwilling to ally with the main target of Trump's trade war. Facing the cratering of global markets, Trump on Wednesday backed off his tariffs on most nations for 90 days, saying countries were lining up to negotiate for more favorable conditions. I love this guy. Trump may not have a fourth dimensional plan. That's silly. But he has a regular plan. And that is, he puts tariff on everybody. Tariffs. He creates leverage. They're all now panicked. What's the leverage for? Don't do business with China. Now, the leverage largely already existed, but Trump put his thumb on the scale. He made them feel the pressure of his weight. And they saw that and they said, stop. Please. And Trump's response is, okay, we'll do a deal with you. You will make money. Stop doing deals with China. This is the play. China has been isolated. What does that mean? When he puts all these tariffs on all these countries, they feel the heat, China included. He then cranks the tariff up on China because China won't play ball. Of course they wouldn't. He knew they wouldn't. No, everyone thought that they were going to do this. They're not going to back down. Aside from the fact that they think they're tough, there is an honor in Asian culture that I saw a lot of people talking about. This is interesting. There were personalities who cover Asian news, and they said, Asian countries do not do this. It's dishonorable. They will not back down from a fight. Take, for example, when Fukushima happened in Japan, or Fukushima, for those who are Japanese. They refused to admit the disaster because it was dishonorable, and they were embarrassed. They had to save face. Trump played upon this cultural idea. The Chinese would not back down. Once they cranked the tariffs up, he cranked his up even higher. People start freaking out in other countries. Says, wait, guys, we're going to cut you a deal now. Just don't work with them. They saw the tariffs Trump put on China, and they said, we don't want none of that. Now China's going door to door, nation to nation. And these countries are like, we ain't getting involved in this, bro. We will not see our economies destroyed to protect you. That's something huge. China has refused to seek talks, saying it would fight to the end in a tariff war. Trump's move was seemingly an attempt to narrow what had been an unprecedented trade war between the U.S. and most of the world to a showdown between the U.S. and China. A just cause received support from many. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Zhan said at a daily briefing on Thursday, the U.S. cannot win the support of the people and will end in failure. China has thus far focused on Europe, with a phone call between Premier Li Qiang, probably pronouncing that wrong, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, sending a positive message to the outside world. Now, take a look at this chart. They've got the top U.S. imports from China: mobile phones, computers, electric and industrial equipment, toys, games, sporting goods, clothing and textiles, car parts, household appliances, telecommunications, furniture and household goods, cookware and cutlery tools. I'm super excited, my friends. I love it. You know what? we rely heavily on electronics and on components. A lot of it's made in Taiwan and South Korea. We'll see what happens. Yo, Foxconn is in China. This means your iPhones, a lot of your Samsung devices, actually are getting made in China. Yo, they're about to get really, really expensive. So this is going to get weird. Make them here in the U.S. Quote, China is willing to work with the U.S. to jointly implement the important consensus reached by the leaders of China and the EU, strengthen communications and exchanges, and deepen China-EU trade, investment, and industrial cooperation, the official Xinhua news agency reported. That was followed by a video conference between Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao and EU Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, Moros, I can't pronounce that, Shevchovich. I tried. On Tuesday to discuss the U.S. reciprocal tariffs. Wang said the tariffs seriously infringe upon the legitimate interests of all countries, seriously violate WTO rules, seriously damage the rules-based multilateral trading system, and seriously impact the stability of the global economic order, Xinhua said. It is a typical act of unilateralism, protectionism, and economic bullying, Wang was quoted as saying. You going to cry? You going to cry, China? The United States should protect the interests of the United States, and that is what Donald Trump is doing. Now, take a look at this. This is where it gets interesting. Top 10 U.S. exports to China. These are getting hit with tariffs. Soybeans. Soybeans. Aircraft and parts, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors. That's fascinating. Likely because of Taiwan. Industrial machines, crude oil, liquid natural gas, plastics, cars, new and used, and medicinal equipment. China is willing to resolve differences through consultation, negotiation. But if the U.S. insists on its own way, China will fight to the end. This is where things get really, really interesting. Semiconductors. Can we get a semi? Let's pull up some examples of semiconductors for you guys. Some pictures, because this is where things get fun. Come on, these are all stock images. I want some real images. Let's do this. Here we go. What is this? Toshiba Wow. That's a really old one. There's no real good images of semiconductors, to be completely honest. It's giving me graphs. I'm trying to pull them up. Here we go. Got it. When you search for semiconductors, it shows you a bunch of, processors. So here's what you got. Types of semiconductors. You got the analog signal power. You got CPUs, GPUs, ASICs, FPGAs, etc. Okay, here's why this is important. We are sending semiconductors to China. China has an 84% tariff. So let me do this too. Let's do what's the typical cost of a semiconductor. I want to get the real numbers so I can do some math for you guys. Basic chips like diodes, resistors, and transistors are pennies. Standard microcontrollers, $1 to $20. These are used in appliances, cars, Internet of Things devices, basic computer tech. Advanced processors like CPUs, GPUs, etc., they can range upwards of $40,000 if they're on the ultra high end, like the NVIDIA A100. All right, let's play this game. Let's say we're doing the Apple M series chip. It's $100 to $150. So we send this to China. I'm not saying it's the exact one that we do send, but let's just say we do. $100 gets hit with a Chinese tariff of $184. I'm sorry, of $84. Now, when that company like Foxconn imports it, they're going to be spending not just $100, not just the additional couple bucks for let's say it's $6 in shipping. It's an easy number to pick. But $84 for the tariff. It is now $190 for that semiconductor to make that iPhone. So when they make the iPhone, they have to add about $84 to the cost because of the tariff. That doesn't include any other components they have to import. If they're importing plastics and they're going to use plastic materials for these phones, oh boy, the cost of these things is going to go up more than people realize. Now, let's say the phone costs $300. They're now going to sell it for $400 because of that tariff on multiple components. Maybe $450 because the tariff's not just semiconductor, but the plastics as well. When that product comes back to the United States, it's not just going to be a 100% tariff on the initial 300. It's now going to be a 145% tariff on the 450 from the tariffs that China ingested. So you're looking at a $300 phone potentially jumping to $450 by the time it comes back to the United States. Then with the existing tariff, so let's say China makes the phone for $200. They send it to the U.S. and they mark it up to $300. Normally, with the tariff, they now have to absorb that cost on their end, making the total cost of the phone now $450 by the time it makes or the total cost is now, it's a hard cost for them. They sell it for $450. When it's being imported, you've got to put another 100%, putting it to 900, and then another 45%, putting it up another 400. That $300 phone just went up $1,000 in cost. That's crazy. I guess you could only just make it here if it can be made here. And I got asked the other night. People are saying, Tim, you're saying that Trump shouldn't have universal tariffs on things like bananas or coffee. And the member said, there's a member calling on the uncensored Tim Castyrell show, just grow the coffee in vertical farms. It's like, okay, well, listen, we have coffee from Hawaii, Kona coffee. If people want specifically Nicaraguan coffee, and it's like the soil composition, the altitude, and all these things make the beans slightly different and give it different flavors, you can't make that here. So I don't think it makes sense to tariff those things. One could argue that when it comes to wines and Chardonnays, as it was argued last night, it's similar. Agreed. If people want to buy a specific wine or whatever from Europe, you can't get that here. However, I do think that makes sense to have a tariff on those goods because they're specialty items. That's literally what I said a couple days ago. That being said, there are some things we don't grow here. We don't manufacture here. And certainly one could argue that we could create vertical farms for cocoa beans and things like this. And okay, fine. That's why when Trump says 10% tariff across the board, I go, okay, sure. Look, right now, Donald Trump is getting rid of he's getting rid of IRS agents, federal workers. He mentioned during his campaign last year, he thought about getting rid of the income tax for tariff only. Imagine if Trump says, it's going to be a 10% tariff. You can handle it. And then he says, no more income tax. That's interesting. The American people will own more of their wealth, and the U.S. government, as customers of the world, will charge upon importing 10% or more on certain goods. But people will have more money in their pockets to choose what they want to do with it, and the U.S. government will make money off tariffs. I think what Trump is doing is he's looking at how much money can we take from the American people and how do they feel about that? Will there be more economic activity if people keep all of their money? If they import goods, they're paying a tariff. How much will the U.S. generate from those goods? You take a look at the total amount imported every year. So let's actually do that. How much, here we go. Let's do this. What's the total value of all goods imported to the U.S. every year? The total value of all goods imported to the U.S. is $3 trillion. It's a slight decrease from the previous year. They say that in 2023, Mexico surpassed China as the leading exporter to the U.S., $475 billion, where China decreased to $427.2. Certainly with the tariffs Trump is putting on China, it's going to decrease this. But if they're doing $3 trillion per year and Trump's simply saying 10%, that's $300 billion generated from these tariffs. That being said, Trump has actually already stated we're doing $2 billion per day, which means you can actually double that. We're looking at around 720 or so or more. 730 billion dollars generated from tariffs. I don't think that's going to get anywhere near the income tax, right? What's the total revenue from income tax in the U.S. every year? I think it's actually substantially higher than that. I could be wrong. So tariffs aren't poised yet to totally eliminate income tax. It was $4.7 trillion. So that's way off. However, Wow. That's crazy. And that's half of taxes. An important point to be discussed, my friends. Donald Trump is gutting the federal government. He's firing lots of people. If he gets the budget way down, it's possible he moves to create a tariff-funded federal government that is substantially weaker and smaller than we experience today. Now, China says they will unleash a $1.9 trillion tsunami on the world in drawn-out tariff warfare on the U.S. I know what Trump's going to do. China, I can assume, knows this. Guys, can you imagine a scenario where Donald Trump says, okay, I surrender. We give up. You've won, China. That's never going to happen. My favorite meme, as I mentioned this the other day, was Trump's in the driver's seat and he's saying, so help me God, I will ram this car into a tree. Trump is not going to back down. It's not happening. You can call him insane. You can call him a lunatic. You can call him a madman. Doesn't matter. Trump's going to keep going. Maybe she does it as well. The fascinating thing is, some have questioned, in a representative democracy like ours, can Trump really withstand political pressures? The bond market movement was scary and Trump made his move. In China, it's the Communist Party. Can Xi Jinping really be removed from power, or is he going to be like, we won't back down? I feel with the Chinese Communist Party as a unified force, though there is some dissent and who knows, you're largely going to have agreement. The U.S. can't screw with us. We'll fight back. And these are people who are willing to sacrifice their wave after wave of their own citizen to get what they want. When they had the Olympics there, something like 10 years ago, they took all the water from the farmers and left them destitute because they were like, nah, we need the water for us. And they did that really big opening ceremony that everyone was like, wow, it's crazy. Look what China's doing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. They say the communist nation has spent years fostering a strategy that transitioned from building housing to $1.9 trillion constructing factories to make cheap goods. They are threatening the United States. After Trump announced his tariffs, they're saying they will unleash it on the world. They say Beijing will also likely impose further export controls on products needed by American companies to make chips and other products, and slapping them down with intimidating regulatory investigations and penalties. The blacklists are also likely to increase in an attempt to force U.S. firms to give up intellectual property or be banned from doing business in China. That could be perilous, as 200 American companies have stated in recent years that China is their top source of geopolitical risk, according to a U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation report. China's state media has remained on message, with the Chinese Commerce Ministry saying if the U.S. insists on its own way, China will fight to the end. Beijing has also looked to Southeast Asian countries like Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand to make up trade deficits. One thing they're also going to try and do, companies are already trying to relocate to Vietnam and other nations or reroute their products from China, ship them to Vietnam through a warehouse hub, and then send them to the United States to bypass those tariffs. That can work. Or they open a new factory. Now, China may actually try and do the same thing. The Democrats, of course, came out and lied and said Donald Trump put a tariff on an island only inhabited by penguins. He doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, he's making sure that companies and countries don't try to relocate goods to Heard and McDonald Island to try and bypass the tariffs. If he created an island, or if there was a zone with no tariffs, people would just ship their products to the island, then ship into the U.S. and say, came from McDonald Island, no tariff. It's a loophole. Trump closed it. Now, the question, I suppose, is how do people feel about all of this? Aside from what Trump is doing with these trade deals, check this out. Panama and U.S. lock in new security pact for canal as China tensions simmer. He's locking out China from the Panama Canal. He is crushing the Chinese economy. Now, this may exacerbate Thucydides' trap, the fear that China escalates to war. But if he does this slow enough, no, he just weakens them. They're going to feel the pain. I wonder how they'll react. Warfare, kinetic warfare is not going to help them, but influence and manipulation might. But as I was saying, how do regular people feel about this, my friends? Well, first, I'll ask you to get in your chats now and let me know what you think, because we'll read them in the last 10 minutes. But also smash the like button, share this video, share this show right now everywhere you can. Take the URL, post it on social media, really does help, and join our Discord server. Go to timcast.com, click join us, hang out with like-minded individuals, man. The chat is amazing, and you will learn a lot. But let's jump to some of these subreddits. r/small business posted this from 6 days ago. Didn't see this coming. I just got an email from one of our Chinese distributors saying they will no longer distribute their products in the U.S. with the reason offered as effectively the U.S. has become too difficult of a market to continue selling to, and they make more money elsewhere. No one in the U.S. makes comparable products. I planned for so many different things over the past few months, which should allow us to weather the storm to the next year or so, but I didn't expect our largest supplier to back out of the U.S. market entirely. Not sure what to do at this point. This completely guts our business and leaves us with no alternatives or hopes for alternatives. I'm looking into importing them ourselves, but I'm already hitting walls, and the added expense is enormous. Sigh, we're cooked. And this was a week ago. This was before the tariffs went to 145%. That's apocalyptic for these businesses. It really is. Well, 9 hours ago, r/small business said, holy crap, tariffs just blew up again. 125% on Chinese goods, 84% back from China, Dow up 2,965. What is even happening? Yesterday, we saw the largest market rally ever, and today the market is falling. This is laughable insanity. It's a meme. Look, the market made sense. Back when it was, you'd walk to the stock exchange and you'd have a piece of paper and you were like, we want shares in this company. Who's going to buy? Who's going to sell? Now it's the internet and it's all just memes. Now, don't get me wrong. There was a meme element to it back in the day. The news would come out. The newspaper would get printed in the morning. You'd run in and be like, if this is true, we got to sell now. And it was really about whoever had the information. The famous story is in the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleon lost and a messenger ran full speed to try and send word that Napoleon won. Why? When word started to spread in the English stock market that Napoleon had taken over Europe and succeeded, stocks began to crash. Ultra wealthy individuals bought them up for pennies on the dollar, or pence on the pound, as it were. But then the narrative was quickly corrected. Napoleon was defeated and the stocks rebounded, but they'd already traded hands. A lot of money was to be made. If you are tracking this market, I'm not going to give you advice, but there's a lot of millionaires being born today. There was one report that some guy made a deal and made $30 million in a matter of minutes. Trump said buy, he bought, the market spiked, and then he immediately sold and said, I'm out. People are getting rich off of this. Because Trump is acting so, what's the right word? I don't want to say sporadic, because there is a rhyme and reason to what he's doing, but grandiose, as it were. Trump's making moves like a juggernaut. It's not a feather touch. It's a power drive. And this means the market is going to swing wildly. I wonder how many people predicted this market drop off. If they bought shorts, if they bought yesterday when Trump said to buy and then sold before the market closed, they made bank. If they then, at the opening of the market today, shorted the market and then sold within an hour or so, they made bank. Day traders be making lots of money when there's a swing, and they know what to predict. It's hard to know exactly what to expect, though. The Reddit post says Trump just slapped a 125% tariff on Chinese imports. China fired back with 84. Now Amazon's reportedly canceling some merchandise orders from China in response. DTC brands are already scrambling, rethinking their supply chains again. Is this a genuine move towards decoupling, or just another round of political posturing? Can U.S. brands even afford to shift away from China at this point? Feels like 2018 all over again, but messier. This one kind of freaked me out the most. Over at r/stocks, one of the top posts is the U.S. suicide hotline. And it says, if you are feeling, bad, dial 988 or text 988. There's services available 24/7 for anyone experiencing emotional distress, a mental health crisis, or thoughts of suicide. You can call, text, or chat with trained counselors who provide support. It's got 49,000 upvotes. It's because people who are trading stocks are getting wiped out. And it's hurting a lot of people. If you're one of these traders, you are freaking out. Now, one of the news stories that it's been a couple days. We didn't go over it, which is very substantial, though, is that China is considering banning U.S. movies in retaliation. We haven't gotten confirmation on this, but I would love it if they would do so. I understand movies make big bucks, but what they've begun to do in order to placate the Chinese market, they alter movies. There was one movie, let me see if I can pull this one up. It's I think was it a Pixar film? Pixar film, South China Sea. Was it Pixar? DreamWorks. It was a DreamWorks abominable subject of controversy because they drew the South China Sea. So apologies, Pixar. It was not Pixar. It was DreamWorks. Let's grab the story here. Vietnam was pissed. Take a look at this. This is why it's a good thing. Vietnam pulls abominable film over South China Sea map. And I assume that do they have the image? They don't. Well, okay, let me pull up the image. I was hoping they'd have the image there. They don't. Vietnam has banned the new DreamWorks film, Abominable, because a scene involving a map showing the South China Sea. Let's pull that up. Let's grab an image. Yo, this is wild. They really did it. This is the cringe thing. Here we go. We got the image right here. This is a scene from the movie where you can see China, and they drew lines over the South China Sea claiming that China owns that territory. They don't. This is what happens when movies are made for the Chinese market. They claim that they claim cultural influence. In the new Top Gun, there was, I think it was a Tibetan patch on Tom Cruise's character, whatever his name is. I don't know, Maverick. And Top Gun Maverick. And they switched it and removed it because they wanted to be able to show the movie in China. Further, in that film, they don't reference a real adversary of the U.S. They say the enemy. Now, the movie was fun, and I liked it. It was a great send-off for Val Kilmer. It was great that he was in the movie. Iceman. But it was kind of cringe that they were like, the enemy is moving. And it's like, guys, who? They didn't want to say China. They didn't want to say Russia because they wanted people in other countries to watch the movie. If China really does say no to U.S. movies, perhaps we can get back to making pro-American culture where we have enemies. Guys, remember when the Russians were the bad guys in movies all over the place? In GoldenEye and all that? Or the British, the British were enemies? Why can't we have this? I suppose today, if they made a movie where the Russians were the enemy, that people would be like, oh, it's propaganda, it's Ukraine war stuff. But I'm for it. I GoldenEye. You know, you have the Russians, the Soviets. Come on. I guess the main bad guy, though, was Trevelyan. 006. He betrayed James Bond. For England, James. No. For me. Come on, you love that movie. Played that video game all day. I would love it if we regained our cultural dominance and significance because we stopped pandering to foreign countries. There are these videos you see on YouTube. They're called Just for Laughs Gags. And they're funny. They're fun. There's no speech. It's all just silly laugh track gags. And the reason they do that is because it plays well for an international audience. If you don't speak English, you can still laugh at the man slipping on the banana peel. But when the jokes involve English and people can't follow, they don't watch. That being said, there's this new service that will translate everything you say into any language that we're exploring. Mr. Beast has talked about it. And I think we actually have it up on some of the videos. YouTube allows it. Rumble doesn't have this feature yet. But we're thinking of launching Spanish language Timcast on Rumble. It is kind of cringe and creepy because it's me, but I'm just speaking Spanish. And I got to be honest, the most Spanish I know is like, hola, mi amigo, dos tacos de pollo, por favor, más crema, sin cilantro, y agua con gas, por favor. Not a little bit. I have no problem ordering from restaurants and finding the library. But it is funny when these AI videos come out and it's me speaking and it sounds like me, but it's French. We did one experiment with Mandarin and it was actually really funny. But the world's changing, my friends. We don't need to pander. We can make content that is, I am proud to be an American. I have an American perspective. We want America to win and succeed. We got a Gulf of America, baby. So maybe. Now, one thing I do think is really funny about this whole trade war and, excuse me, EU pauses countermeasures after Trump's tariff reprieve. Trump says China was being disrespectful. They were, but the EU announced they were going to retaliate against the U.S. Trump then says, okay, we're backing off because these countries want to negotiate. But hold on. The EU also was disrespectful. It's because Trump knows what he's doing. He does not care. He knows what he's doing. Trump says, we are going to cut tariffs on all these countries. We want to work with them, but not China. It's not really about China being disrespectful. Trump wants to isolate and cut them off from the market. Now, as I said earlier on, it's not just about what Trump is doing internationally with trade and tariff, all that stuff. It's about how we in this country are operating. So I definitely wanted to throw in this story a little bit. Elon Musk's Doge discovers millions in taxpayer dollars wasted on unemployment claims for fake people. Yo, this is wild. Elon Musk posts on X. Your tax dollars are going to pay fraudulent unemployment claims for fake people born in the future. So crazy. Look at this. 24,500 people over 115 years old claimed $59 million in benefits. Excuse me. Hiccups. 20,000 people between 1 and 5 years old claimed $254 million. As I said, Elon, let's be fair. Those children are unemployed. How they qualified is beyond me, though. 9,700 people with birth dates over 15 years in the future claimed $69 million in benefits. In one case, someone with a birthday in 2154 claimed $41,000. It's all a scam. It's all a scam, dude. Let me tell you a story I heard once. I was hanging out in L.A., and I was at the North Hollywood skate park. And there was someone there that was bragging about how they wrote down random numbers in their tax return. And they got big refunds back. And I was like, what? And they said every year they just put in what sounds reasonable and then claim they paid enough that sounds reasonable so that the program says they're getting a refund of like a couple $100. And I was like, so you're committing tax fraud against the IRS? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, dude, that's called fraud. And they were like, they said, yeah, I don't think the government's going to check on a tax bill for $30,000 where the refund was like $600-700. And I was like, right. You're just saying you're committing tax fraud. Don't do that. People do this all the time. So when Elon says he finds this, they don't bother looking for it. Here's the truth, man. I guarantee you at the IRS, they find stuff like this all the time. And there will be some agent and they'll say, hey, take a look at this. If somebody has a tax return of $50,000 and they're claiming they paid, $20,000 in taxes and they're going to get a refund back of, a couple grand or whatever. And the agent goes, I do not want to launch an investigation on some plumber from Utah who made a claim that might look legit or otherwise. We got to track down. It's small fries, man. It's small fry. They're like, let's just automate collections. That's what they do. There was one story I saw, I think it came out of Doge, where they were like, people don't realize the IRS really has no capability to track any of these returns. I mean, let's be honest. How many taxpayers are there? We can go to the debt clock. Let's pull up the National Debt Clock website, the famous website. Let's grab it right here. Let's zoom in. And they have the total amount of U.S. taxpayers. Where is that number at? We got to navigate. We got total debt, Treasury. I thought it was up here, wasn't it? It was like total U.S. What is this? Why is it popping up? Total U.S. Here you go. Total U.S. population is 341 million. U.S. income taxpayers is 112 million. So you mean to tell me every year 112 million returns are filed, and you think the IRS can actually look at 1% of those? We're talking about 1.12 million returns being 1%. The IRS can't track any of that stuff. I'm not advocating. I'm saying this means people are ripping us off. There are people filing false returns. They're not paying their taxes. This is what the IRS claimed. So they're like, we're going to hire 87,000 people. Yeah, they weren't hiring 87,000 people to go after waste, fraud, and abuse. They're angry about Doge trying to find waste, fraud, and abuse. No, they wanted to automate collections against working class people. What I want to know about are these people ripping us off. Ripping off you, ripping off me. That's the game they've been playing the whole time, my friends. And Doge is finding it. Elon says the oldest living American is 114 years old. So it's safe to say that anyone 115 or older is collecting unemployment due to being dead. There was no sanity check for impossibly young or impossibly old people for unemployment insurance. Come on. Now, the reason why I bring this up, it's an interesting story that I wanted to attach to the bigger picture of the tariffs and why Trump is taking these actions and what the bigger picture on Trump's play is. We got to cut waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. We need to find out where money is being stolen. Trump is going to lay off huge portions of the government. He is then going to issue tariffs on a bunch of foreign countries to generate revenue. Part of those tariffs are going to cut off China and weaken their economy and hopefully bring back manufacturing to a certain degree to the United States. It probably will, maybe not as much as we hope. It's also going to generate revenue where Trump can then issue income tax cuts on the people. He's cutting grants to universities. He's cutting federal funding to states. He is reducing government. Elon Musk is doing this. When the total federal budget drops dramatically, Trump can then say, we only need $1 trillion, and we're making that off of tariffs. Income tax, gone. But that means shrinking the government quite a bit. Seems to be the play. Who knows, my friends? Maybe he will or will not succeed. Smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Every like on this video is 1 year. Represents a year Fauci will spend in prison for lying to Congress. Let's see how many likes we can get. For now, we're going to grab your Rumble rants, your chats here. And of course, we'll be sending all of you over to Russell Brand is today. Shout out to Russell Brand. Let me see if I can pull up his show as I have to do every day. I believe he is gearing up to go live. So in the next few minutes, we'll have that raid ready. But in the meantime, we'll grab some of your chats. All right. Arsonist YouTube says, I wonder why 2A is being thrown out the window by conservatives. I think they are anti-2A ideologues trying to remove 2A. The story shouldn't be this big. Media usually won't allow it. 0 cents. I think this is, of course, in reference to the Carmelo Anthony story. I did a segment, which will go up in a few minutes, actually. Segment. It was half an hour long. I read the police report. Simple version. There's two rival schools meeting. Carmelo goes to Centennial. Metcalf and his friends go to Memorial. They were sitting at the Memorial tent. Storm clouds overhead. Carmelo Anthony walks and sits down under the tent. The other students tell him he can't sit there. There's a verbal altercation to a certain degree that escalates. Ultimately, they tell him not to be there. Now, based on the police reports, I'm not sure if he was touched first. But at some point, Carmelo grabs his backpack and reaches inside. Students said they didn't think he had a weapon or anything like that. Carmelo says, touch me and find out what happens. According to witness reports, this is when Austin touched him and told him to leave. And then he said something like, punch me and find out. This is in the police report. There's a witness statement, so we don't know. There may be videos of this that'll come out soon. Then it is reported that either Metcalf shoved or grabbed Carmelo. Carmelo then pulled the knife, stabbed Metcalf once in the chest before fleeing. By the time the police arrived, it was starting to rain, so they covered the scene with a tarp. 2 police officers said that when they approached Carmelo Anthony, he said, I was protecting myself. They mentioned that they never asked him anything or told him to say anything. He said that he touched me. I told him not to. I was defending myself, and then asked female officer if this could be considered self-defense. And she said she didn't know what happened. That's the gist of the story. The police then brought 2 of the individuals into the locker room out of the rain because it was massive downpour. The brother of the teenager who died was hyperventilating, and as the police officer described, hysterical, sad story. And that's when the witness described the events as I read from that police report. What I'm hearing from conservatives is you have no right to self-defense just because someone pushed you. There are numerous instances where individuals used firearms for self-defense, and they were never even touched. So that argument doesn't play. You can argue, some conservatives have argued, you can't bring a knife to a school where it's banned. It's not allowed. Indeed. Schools are often weapon-free zones, gun-free zones. Are conservatives arguing that if the Democrats or Republicans say you can't bring a gun in here, your 2A rights are null? The story likely falls into Carmelo Anthony escalated this beyond what he reasonably needed to defend himself, and that makes sense. Although I think first-degree murder is a stretch, the school did ban weapons, in which case he's going to get first degree because he brought a weapon to a school. You can't do that. I think you have a right to keep and bear arms no matter where you are. Whether or not you use them, the situation, in a situation that does or does not dictate is the question at play. So I think on the natural course, first degree makes no sense. They're arguing that it'll be premeditated murder because he brought a weapon to a school when you're not supposed to. Whereas premeditated murder is supposed to be you traveled with the intent initially to kill the person. Second degree murder is possible. However, if he was grabbed and the witnesses say he was grabbed, the defense will argue self-defense. We'll see. Apparently there's videos and we'll see how it comes out. Let's grab some more of your rants. Mason says, shouldn't past presidents be charged with dereliction of duty for putting the U.S. into this position? Trump is proving we did not have to be placed in the weakened position we are in. Yep. Biden could have shut the border down. But they had an agenda. Indeed. All right, let's go. Arsonist says, thanks for the great show, Tim. You need a catchphrase like, give us 1 hour, we give you the world. Sure, I don't know. Let's see what else we got. What does it say? Al Nicholas says, I say Trump rips the Band-Aid off. Let's go. 500% tariffs. Let's get it. I'm down. How about that? Pinochet's helicopter tour says, astroturfed suicide narrative. It's fear-mongering. Come on, Tim. 50,000 people upvoted it. You can argue that it's bots doing it. That's fine. I'm just saying it's a prominent post on that page for stocks. So take for it what you want. Pinochet says, wasn't Trevelyan a kulak betrayed by England at the end of World War II? I don't remember, dude. Honestly, I haven't seen that movie in decades. Maybe I should watch it again. It's a fun movie. Matt Ride says, just a quick correction on the Top Gun movie. It was a Taiwan patch that was initially removed for China. Okay, Taiwan. P.S. from a Canadian refugee in Taiwan, loving the new Rumble live stream. Thank you, sir. It's really interesting because this show will premiere on YouTube at 4 p.m. at youtube.com/Timcast, which has been doing really well. Now, we switched the channel over from, that was my first channel, and I would put up a video every day at 4 p.m., half an hour long. And they used to do sometimes 500,000 views. Now they're doing between 100 and sometimes a little over 200,000. So we've only started in the past 2 weeks or so. But I'll just say, it's tremendous. It's amazing. The Rumble audience, the show is getting hundreds of thousands. I mean, let's actually check the hard number. Make sure you subscribe to this channel on Rumble, my friends. Let's see what we got in the live. 289,000 yesterday, 300, 281, 300, 278, 311, 325. So this show on Rumble is doing massive numbers, much bigger than by itself. Combined, we're back, baby. The original segments we do exclusively live on Rumble in the Rumble morning lineup, and now back on the original YouTube channel, we're hitting between 400 and 500,000 views per episode. Not to mention on the podcast, we're probably doing all in all around 6, maybe 700. Maybe 700. We don't do clips of this show. We have independent clips. But if we were combined it all, man, I think we're doing probably about 2, maybe a million in it. What are we looking at? Maybe 2 million a day on the morning show. It's massive. It's outpacing. Actually, no, it's not outpacing IRL. It's not. IRL, since we did this deal with Rumble, guys, it's been massive. Our Timcast IRL viewership has doubled. It's crazy. And the morning show viewership is up nearly double. So it's been absolutely amazing. Shout out. Let's grab some more of your chats, my friends, before we initiate that raid in just a couple of minutes. Let's see what we got. I see, let's see some of these regular, here we go. All right. Davida says, how do you logically justify your 1A views with your 2A views and legal defense, given you said we shouldn't defend rights of those that wouldn't defend ourselves, though? I agree he has rights, though. I'm not sure what you actually mean. My 1A views are, I see what you're saying. We shouldn't defend the rights of those that wouldn't defend ours. Right. Okay. I don't know who this Carmelo Anthony guy is. I don't know what his views are. I don't know that he's a Marxist or leftist. It just sounds like we've got a story of teenagers in a high school that got into an altercation, and one dude should not have had a knife, should not have used the knife, and he did. So he's likely going to get in trouble. I think manslaughter, some kind of like negligent homicide, but they may get him on second-degree murder because, they're going to argue self-defense. If this dude was an overt Marxist who was going around, I'd be like, goodbye, I ain't getting involved. But it's not. It's just high school kids fighting. And so we have a question of what precedent is going to be set. When we win, and we will, and crush the communists, we're going to ask ourselves in these court case proceedings about the precedent that we want. Yo, but if it was like an Antifa communist showed up to a fight with a weapon, I'd be like, nah, lock him up, throw away the key. I don't care. I'm not going to defend these people. But, hopefully that's clear. All right, my friends, it's time to hang out with Russell Brand. We're going to initiate that raid for all of you guys, which means for those that are watching, you're going to get sent to watch Russell. And I recommend you do. This is part of the Rumble morning lineup where basically all of the morning lineup shows are the biggest live streams in their time slot in the country, which is amazing. So shout out to Rumble. Shout out to Russell Brand. To all the viewers for making this possible. Make sure you join our Discord server at timcast.com so you can hang out with like-minded individuals and call into our uncensored show tonight at 10 p.m. after Timcast IRL. We're back at 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL Live. Tonight we have Danny Polishchuk. So it's going to be fun and funny. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thank y'all for hanging out. And we will see you all later today with more segments and then Timcast IRL.